Welcome to Loving Companies. Update your content strategy for better demand generation. If that is what you came here to hear, you are absolutely in the right place. So let's go ahead and get started with letting me help you with your Zoom webinar control panel. I will be your commander. I couldn't resist. Let's take a quick look at the control panel. If you look at the bottom, in the middle is a Q&A button. This is where you can submit questions anytime throughout the discussion. We will leave time at the end to address them. Please don't put questions in the chat. We don't see that. Again, the button with the Q&A. And with that, let's go. Welcome to today's Marketing Insight series. I am Amy Brodie, and I'm here with the one and only Dana Pyles, who somehow makes Google updates sound like something you actually want to talk about.
Well, thank you, Amy. That's one of the nicest intros that I've had in a while, so I will do my best not to mess it up for you.
Great. Fair warning. We're going to talk about the kind of shifts that can change your lead volume fast, but we'll also show you exactly how to ride those waves. Before we dive into the deep end, let's get everyone on the same page about where we're headed today. So be honest, because we're all watching you. How many of you have increased your digital budget, crossed your fingers, and then watched nothing much happen?
Or worse, you checked your rankings after, spending all that money, and you're like, am I seriously lower than I was in rankings before I did all this extra work? And to be honest, you're not alone. We've heard that frustration. We hear it all the time in the agency and outside of the agency. So it really kind of, we started asking the question, why is this happening? And really, it's not just bad luck. There's a much bigger story and challenge unfolding in the digital landscape right now. And we're going to talk about that today with all of you.
All right.
Yeah, so if you're responsible for driving sales in your senior living organization, today's digital disruptions are changing the playbook. They're changing them fast. You've probably already noticed that. And since AI technology has come into the mainstream in 2024, the digital landscape will truly never, ever be the same. I kind of liken it to very similar in disruption to when the internet came onto the scene and we were all trying to figure out Netscape or Mosaic. I'm probably dating myself here, but that was in the 1990s. And now today we are experiencing something very similar in gravity. The Google algorithm isn't just changing once or twice. It is evolving constantly. And the shift isn't just technical. It's truly affecting our real world ability to hit sales goals. Lots of our communities and senior service providers, I don't want to leave them out as well, are grappling with inefficient strategy, the lack of strategy, process just isn't in place to handle, some of the shifts that are happening and as frequent as they're happening. And then as a result, you're seeing poor performance.
So Dana, let me jump in there real quick. What's been the biggest impact from your perspective?
Gosh, the biggest impact is really the unpredictability of all of it. I think we can all feel that pretty, acutely. In the past, we could really rely on steady performance, from proven content strategies. There's this traditional strategy approach of blog calendars, pay-per-click rhythms, organic growth. And it's just now it's not performing the way that it used to. It's, we're seeing things become far more volatile. And truly with the advent of AI and search platform enhancements, it's changing how we find your brand, how we search on the internet now, and how much, how much trust our lead volumes, our prospects are placing in your brand. So the biggest impact is, your strategy has to evolve with Google and not work against it and work with it.
Great. Thanks. This is like one of those TV dramas where there's a twist every 10 minutes. Except in our world, the twists are called Google algorithm changes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not slowing down anytime in the near future. In fact, the pace is accelerating. As we've done research as an agency, we've found that, the Google CEO is, talking about not just announcing all of these shifts and changes, which are unprecedented in 2025. The volatility is going to continue into 2026. This disruption timeline that's illustrated on your screen is, really how many significant core algorithm. Now, these are not just the refinements. These are the core structural algorithm shifts and updates that have occurred just in the last 12 months. And it doesn't really capture all of it. It just gives you a clear understanding of some of the major impacts that have been made on Google, and Bing, of course, is going to be following suit as well.
Dana,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's right. Let me stop you for a moment. I think it would help if I explain this graphic a little bit more, since we've seen this 100 times and our audience is seeing it for the first time. If you look at it, it's like a board game, and I liken it to Candyland. Surely everyone here has either played Candyland themselves or had an aunt, uncle, grandparent, and if not, you can just hang up now. In this chart, we start top left in March of 2024, and we're going to June 2025 and beyond. So the gray squares that Dana talked about represent the time you had to prepare and pivot before the next big change. So you're cruising along in March, and then all of a sudden there's a very big change in April, and you need to pivot and change what you're doing. Kind of like landing in the swamp in Candyland and having to go back and start again. As Dana will explain, it's unprecedented to have this many changes in a year. So I hope there are Candyland fans out there. Go ahead, Dana.
Yeah, but there is good news, even if you find yourself in the molasses swamp or whatever it's called. I can't remember right now. Disruption is actually good because it creates an opportunity as long as you know how to move quickly within the landscape. So let's move forward and see exactly what are these disruptors that Google's putting in place. We'll start with the first here. The first change really happened even before the timeline, the disruptor timeline that we just highlighted to you was in place. This is really looking at late 2024, which is quite frankly when our agency started to notice that there was something happening. Google was reevaluating their ranking structure. They're realigning visibility for their users. Sometimes it's hard. It's easy to forget that Google, their platform, their search platform, they're catering to their users. They're not catering to their advertisers. So they want to make sure that anybody who is searching on their platform is having the best user experience and getting the most relevant information possible. So we'll move forward. This is now getting into Q1 of 2025, where they start talking about, really, we want to have content that has a strong emphasis on authoritative. We want to make sure that it's well-structured content. There was no definition as to what that well-structured content actually was at this point in time. Thank you, Google. But they just started penalizing people when that update started coming up if it wasn't well structured as they deemed necessary. Move forward to change number 3, and then we actually got a defined what does well structured mean with their EEAT structure.
Oh, excuse me, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
Eat? Are we going to have snacks?
Oh, I wish. Google's having snacks. Google's eating our budgets for lunch. Yeah. But really, that stands for expertise, experience, authority, trustworthiness. Your content really needs to ring true to Google. Otherwise, you're going to get penalized, as was mentioned in change number 2. Moving into change number 4, this is in May 2025. We all felt this acutely. Those AI-driven overview results were launched in full in May. The featured organic listings, and it started to push things down on the page. Both your sponsored ads as well as your organic listings all got pushed down a little bit because this is prime real estate. And again, Google is catering to its users and it's, what that experience feels like when you're searching on their platform. Lots of competition out there with other open AI platforms right now. So then we move into change 5. This is more present, summer 2025, user personalization with results tailored to user behaviors and preferences. Once that AI-driven overview results came into view, boy, did they collect information. And now they're starting to personalize, to fit your needs, your behaviors on the platform. Change number 6, as you can see, there's a lot of these. Content structure with interlinking strategy. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. And content clusters, really creating greater weight. So clusters adhering to that EEAT structure that we just talked about, but then linking them all together. And then finally, more recent, unprecedented number of those little tiny microscopic platform updates and refinements, just constant on the landscape, just making sure that they are, change number 1 was to reevaluate their ranking structure. They are going to further that, and continue refining towards that.
So, Dana, that's a lot of disruption. You just listed 7 of them. How did you first recognize that we needed to test something totally new? I have to think it had something to do with our strategy team sounding alarm bells as they watch results drastically changing.
Yeah, so we started to notice that we were limited in the number of leads and the lead volume that we were bringing in for our clients. And we were starting to see that tail off a bit. So we wanted to make sure that, we had a good understanding and a pulse on what was happening. So we did a lot of search to help us understand what to do and then to inform other marketers on what they could do with all of the changing landscape that we've just mentioned.
Okay.
So first and foremost, we stayed informed. We know the landscape is constantly shifting. I personally went to a number of digital conferences, subscribed to some SEO and developer forums, just so that I could hear the chatter on what's happening. If there's a lot of chatter across multiple industries, we all know to go look for the next Google announcement. And I actually personally subscribed to the Wall Street Journal because I just wanted to stay on top of what was going on and understand the gravity of the shifts. Next, we were willing to adapt. We were willing to test. We'll talk about a test we put in market here shortly, but really understanding the landscape understanding the landscape now, understanding that it will continue to shift throughout the rest of this year and into 2026, according to Google CEO. So we're just keeping an eye on things. And then next, really making sure that we are building towards those EEAT standards that we talked about. Again, that's the expertise. Are you an expert in your topic area? do you have experience in your topic area? Do you have some level of authority as deemed by Google? And then are you trustworthy? And that's really factoring into a lot of what we're doing. And then finally, that interlinking strategy is very, very important. And we'll talk about that in more detail here in a few minutes.
All right, Dana, sell it to us. Why is all this chaos actually good news?
Well, I'll remind everybody on this webinar, and I said it a couple of slides ago, really, really important to remember that when the rules change, it's a great opportunity to try something different, versus sitting in the corner and rocking back and forth, which never works out. But we've got a great partnership and a case study to prove it, and we'll talk through a little bit about that today. This really is my favorite part of the webinar. We have a great story of a campaign that really broke all of the rules by reading Google's tea leaves, if you will, to understand what could actually work in market. And again, this is not just raising visibility, but it's that lead generation that was tailing off for us and our clients. And we were, actively looking to figure that out. So as an agency, really determined to understand what that secret sauce was going to look like and confirm our strategic hunch, if you will, that we could radically change how we approach content to not only improve organic rankings for our clients, but then also create meaningful lead generation for seniors that might be a little bit earlier on in their search and education process. So we were very, very fortunate and extremely grateful to have partnered with one of our clients, Covenant Woods. They're located in Mechanicsville, Virginia. And for those who don't know the Virginia landscape very well, they're in a very highly competitive Richmond DMA. And that was really important for us to find somebody who was really in a competitive market to prove this out. So let's dive in. So we started drafting a content demand generation strategy for Covenant Woods in August. We really had an understanding that we wanted to take all of that digital landscape detail that I just went through, all those challenges and everything that we knew that was public knowledge about Google, and figure out how to support a lead generation strategy, which for Covenant Woods at that point in time had plateaued over the last few months. So if we move forward here, we can, some of our objectives was, we wanted to make sure that we had that strategic alignment with all of the Google updates. We wanted to improve their visibility on the platform. And then we also wanted to support that lead generation and their topic authority on some specific areas that we wanted to rank for. Next, we put goals in place because without goals, we don't know if we're successful. So we wanted to make sure that we were owning a topic and a category on Google based off of their Search Console data. And that's really important because we had historical data that we could factor into our strategy to really understand what was going to work in that market. We wanted to make sure that we were increasing lead generation, but maintaining the quality results that they had so far. And then we wanted to own a topic. That means page one, which is difficult, but doable. We wanted to be top 5 in organic ranking, directly below their sponsored ad. We wanted to raise their visibility. And we had a test timeline of about 90 days, which is typically the learning period for Google. We launched in mid-December, and we were going to continue this campaign as a test through mid-March.
Hey, Dana, that's an interesting time to launch. What were you hoping to gain by going live during the holidays? We don't usually do that.
Yeah, usually it's unheard of, right? You don't want to do that. But It was intentional in this case because we expected website traffic just historically to increase in January. And typical content takes some time to rank on Google on the organic results. So we wanted to make sure that we had everything in market so that we could ride that wave in January.
Well, how smart was that? I love this story. We're talking about a climb from page 3 obscurity to page 1 visibility in a matter of days. Is that true?
Yeah. So by March of 2025, we really had a breakthrough in SEO and lead generation content strategy. We achieved top organic rankings and quality leads within days versus months. Typical traditional content marketing usually takes that full 3 months to see some visible results. In this case, it was very fast. Organic lead generation supported their paid media efforts. So we really wanted to continue paid media, but we needed a support to bring in the number of leads in order to hit those sales goals. And that was really important as part of that strategy. And then, paid and organic lead generation really was essential in responding to Google's user personalization approach. So that all factored into some of the breakthroughs that we saw. I will say it wasn't magic. It was most certainly strategy. It was structure and a shift on how we approached, a fundamental shift in how we approached content. So let's dig in a little bit to the before and after so you can see exactly what happened here. All right. So like I said before, we expected a typical learning period on Google, but we quickly realized that those learning phases of content marketing rankings are not necessarily relevant. Pre-campaign, March through November 2024, Covenant Woods had an average ranking for independent living in Richmond, Virginia, which was the topic that we researched and deemed, an opportunity for them to rank. They were at about 35, so 34.88 if we're splitting hairs here. But then post-campaign, so we're talking just mid-December through that first 30 days of the campaign, we improved to 9.7. Now, we know as an agency that some of those searches were us trying to make sure, okay, is it in there? And want to make sure that we can see it. So let's, look at the March, timeline. So by March, we realized that it wasn't just a fluke. We were ranking 4 on page 1, and we'll show you the momentum shift here. If you look at 2024, March through November, page 3+ kind of really vacillating between 3 to 4, ranking at 35. We launched mid-December. That first 30 days, we saw that 9.7 ranking. And then when the volume, the traffic went up as we expected it to in January, we leaped to page 1, which is one of our goals, saw 6 ranking, and then we continued to see great progress into February. We were at number 3, which is well beyond what we had anticipated. We had another pesky core algorithm update in March, but we stayed steady. We were at 4. So we most certainly saw meaningful results here.
Dana, I heard that they saw weekend leads for the first time ever at their community. That's kind of a new ballgame.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a sign that we're reaching people in new ways and at new times. And that's pivotal, especially for clients that are seeing lower lead volume, but also want to gain access to a younger senior earlier on in their search. Maybe waitlist building and that type of thing, most certainly helpful and meaningful across the board.
Well, this chart is the drum roll moment. We went from an average ranking of 34.88 to breaking into the top 4.
Yeah. And the best part is that we stayed there. It wasn't a one-hit wonder. And it wasn't just rankings either. We saw significant lift in engagement numbers, and they tell their own story, which is really exciting.
So this is where I get really excited. People weren't just clicking. We all love to say, yeah, we had 1 million clicks. They were actually staying on the page. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's right. And as we move forward through some of these metrics, the main page, so we selected a topic that we wanted to rank for, based off of some of the historical research and some of our proprietary databases that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. But during the same time period, January Q1 2025, last year, Covenant Woods saw 7 new users versus the 46 that we saw as a result of this campaign. As we move forward, we'll see page views significantly increase. So we had 65 during this period last year, which is still pretty good. But when you look at it in relation to the 246 that were delivered, not so bad, right? We had 207 sessions. And then the time on page is really the eye popper for me. So we had 28 seconds in 2024 on average. And we were able to elevate that to 50 to 90 seconds. So that's really, really meaningful data.
That's pretty incredible. So the results really speak for themselves. Let's talk about how this strategy is different. It's not just about the keywords. It's about, I know I've heard you say before, owning a conversation or topic, right?
Yeah, exactly. So now we're not going to give away the full strategy blueprint here, but I do want to show the structure and the strategy behind it. I think it's important for folks to kind of understand before we get, too deep into the weeds here. What do we mean as far as like the paradigm shift? What was content strategy then versus now? So let's briefly talk about what we mean when we say traditional content marketing approach. So with this first chart, this is what we're all pretty well acquainted with. Marketers and, marketing and sales vice presidents and directors and managers within organizations. We have all followed this blueprint for a long time. Mostly blog focused. We have the content calendars. We know what we're going to be posting. Search engine optimization means, those targeted keywords. We're publishing frequently because we know that, Google was rewarding for that frequent behavior. Each page would more or less stand on its own without a whole lot of internal linkings, if at all. And we're focusing on traffic volume. We're focusing on those page views. Conversely, with the EEAT approach, we're working with Google, not against Google moving forward. So we're looking at topic clusters. We're looking at pillar pages and supporting content. And we'll show you a diagram, so that'll make a little bit more sense here in just a sec. But SEO is really built on credibility, trust signals, and user intent. So remember the personalization, remember the user behaviors, and remember that it is looking for an organization that is well respected and has had some authority on a particular topic. Structured interlinking, and then the focus on conversions, engagement, trust building. Those are going to be the factors that tell us whether or not we're hitting all the right, hitting on all the cylinders, so to speak.
Dana, let me jump in because I have a feeling many people who are watching this, like me, are looking at this saying, this is like throw out the old playbook, where we did a lot of blogs and put in keywords and things and hope for really good results. But this truly seems like a pretty big change.
It is. It's far more now about strategic marketing assets that actually drive conversions, and a big part of that success comes from how the content then connects together. So it's a drastically different way of viewing content marketing and how you can utilize that towards lead generation.
All right, well, let's look into that then a little bit more.
Yeah, so this is where we outline the approach and the importance of the interlinking strategy. And, truly, this is the secret sauce, kind of, understanding, how all of this then comes together. So from a core topic standpoint, I had mentioned earlier, but Love & Company built a closed AI platform that utilizes sources from multiple AI, platforms and algorithms, along with some historical information to understand, what are the opportunities in a given region, in a given market, for our clients to rank and own a topic. And so this gave us a lot of information about, where are the possibilities. We then, moved into, okay, we understand that the assets that we need to develop need to not just rank for a topic, but we need to answer some really essential questions that people are asking. And the questions are slightly different based off of where you are in the country. So those long tail questions, when you first start looking for, information on a life plan community, they can get really long, like, tell me about all of the, amenities and lifestyle features in the Connecticut market and why are they valuable ? And then as they learn more information, those questions get more tailored. So understanding what those questions are, that's a big part of the strategy. And then also making sure that we are interlinking the campaign structure with the table of contents. And I'll show an example of that here in just a second. It's important for users to understand that there's more opportunity to look at different assets within the structure. And I will say that some of our clients have tailored the structure to be just 2 subtopics, doesn't always have to be 3 subtopics. But we'll go through that in just a second. And then really the main focus of all of this is that all of these touch points have a conversion opportunity, opt-in forms at every single touch point within the structure. And then that alleviates the monthly blog burden where you have this asset, it's all interlinked. There's a 360 model here. And then you're just refining or augmenting on this structure. So at the top here, we have a main topic. In this case, it's independent living in Dallas, Texas. We want to make sure we're ranking for that main topic. We want page 1 for that. Highly competitive topic. So how are we going to get there? Well, maybe some of our subtopics are going to be about lifestyle, and that's a subtopic page, and that's linking to that main independent living page on the website. We have another subtopic. Maybe it's about financial planning. We're going to have that then linked. Resident experiences, that's another subtopic. We're going to have all of that linked to that main topic page. But then we have to address the questions. How are we going to go about doing that? The blogs are then supporting all of this structure by answering those very specific questions that are happening in your market, so that Google, when Google does its little crawl to say, okay, somebody's asking this long tail question, I want for my user to know that I'm delivering the best quality content, and not just the best quality content, but the content that's asking your first question, your second, your third, and possibly your fourth. So it's really important for us to have this 360 model that's linked together so that Google sees it as being the best user experience. And that's how you get ranking really fast. People come into this at any juncture. So they could come into the main page, they could come into the subtopic page, they could come into a blog. That's why it's really important for them to understand, hey, there's more to this structure, there's more content, but then there's also opportunity to convert, fill out a form, send their information in for a brochure, or even potentially a call from a sales advisor.
I get it. So this is kind of like you're walking them down the sales funnel, almost nurturing them so that when they get to that conversion point and want to talk to a salesperson, they're very warmed up. They've had a lot of their questions answered, and you're probably seen as a more as a source for information at your community.
Yeah, another offshoot of this approach is that you are now an authority on independent living in Dallas, Texas. Like, folks see you, they're learning from your community. And so what's the first place that they're going to come back to ask for more information? Of course, the community that put all this information out there for them so they could easily understand the ins and outs of their financial planning, the ins and outs of what a lifestyle could look like. And then even more importantly, how do you answer those really core personal questions that are trending in your area, with those supporting blogs. So really important to be seen as an authority in a specific topic, not just from a Google ranking standpoint, but from a trust standpoint, because that's how you're going to get, people moving in.
Awesome. So that looks to me like we're talking about the buzzword strategy interlinking.
Yes, and it's really important. Like I said in the previous, structure that we've built here, that folks understand. And this again is our friend and partner Covenant Woods. Shout out to the team there, because they allowed us to share their information. We're very grateful for that. There's a table of contents that allows people to see that, oh, there's more here. There's more information that, and it's very visual that, folks can start to click through and have a create your own experience type of approach to their content consumption. And that's also really important because people don't want to just absorb how Google decides to rank it. We now have the ability to say, hey, if anybody's familiar with those Choose Your Own Adventure books back in, years and years ago, I was a big fan of that. So this helps us, with our leads and our prospects to choose their own adventure with all of these various topics. But every single time they land on a page, there's a form fill there so that folks can say, hey, you know what, I'm ready to get some more information about this.
Wow, I'm seeing so much of my own behavior on the internet and how I'm being marketed to now. So with all that, let's rein this in and go to our final thought. Let's wrap it up, walk through some high-level takeaways from today, Dana.
Yeah. So really, we want to make sure that we're revising our content mindset. We want to be open to adopting what we call a topic-based content marketing strategy, but truly you want to adhere to what we talked about as far as the EEAT structure and principles, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness, that interlinking strategy, owning a topic, that's what helps Google to deem you as a quality source. There's also some to do with your domain authority that you've already acquired with your website being on the platform for a long time. But this also helps to build that up. You're monitoring those algorithm updates, the AI search updates, different markets are responding differently. So really understanding the questions that are being asked and then drafting a strategy around that so that you have those main topics and those subtopics and you know what the questions are so that you can answer them in those blogs. Think demand generation. That's contrary to what a lot of people in content marketing in general think about. You're thinking content marketing is brand awareness and visibility. It can be and is a useful demand generation, lead generation strategy. So don't think in that silo any longer. And then expect the unexpected. My goodness, we're going to see shifts through 2026. So just stay on top of all of those things, so that you know how to be nimble when you're in those molasses, Candyland, things. I don't even know what to call them anymore.
I hear you. I think that, I would add to that as marketers, we need to be diligent about these changing landscapes because we don't do anything else all day. We have plenty of time to monitor that. But also the real key takeaway, I think, is to be prepared to adjust accordingly.
Yeah, just being smart, have a structure and linked content approach, really one of the most powerful lead generation tools that you have. And the digital landscape is really ready and primed for it.
All right. Well, thank you, Dana. Luckily, we've set up our new Love Insight series resource page for everyone to bookmark and check back frequently to see what's changing and how to adapt. So this link that you saw, we'll be sending it out to you after the webinar. Links directly to a page that you're seeing here where we are updating and keeping the information and all the changes in one place. So you can go there and see, hey, what's going on? You start hearing rumblings or you start seeing changes in your results. Come here and find out what's going on.
Yeah. And I'll interject here. Don't forget to read the blog that supports this webinar and bookmark the Insight Series resource page within the blog as well for those ongoing digital landscape updates that Amy just mentioned.
Great. And then finally, I know you all are asking, wow, how can we get in on this? It's downright exciting. Share your content demand generation story with us for a free 30-minute consultation, and we will help you win the game. And with that, we are going to go ahead and open up to questions. All right. Here's a first question, Dana. Is this a proprietary service, or can you help clients who have another digital partner implement this strategic approach?
Well, the AI platform that I mentioned is proprietary. We built that for our client base. I can, however, look at what you currently have in place and help you think about that a little bit differently. So yes and no, I guess, is the answer to that question.
That's fair. We have another question. I love it. It's the buzzword that I like, interlinking. Does interlinking only refer to grouping blogs together under a subtopic, or should there also be internal links to other blogs?
Yes, so that's a actually great question. You can most definitely interlink within the network and the structure that we talked about. But if there are topics on blogs that are already published that you want to link to, most definitely I would recommend doing something like that as well, which just kind of furthers the footprint, if you will, for any topic that you're looking to rank for.
Okay. That makes a whole lot of sense. Very good question. Another question we have is, do you have an intentional process for keeping MQLs out of the CRM so that the sales team doesn't prematurely loss lead people who are not yet ready to engage with a sales counselor? That's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. And quite honestly, it would probably take a whole other webinar to talk about that. But I would encourage for that specific question, maybe to have that 30-minute consultation where we could dig into that a little bit more, because that goes into a little bit more of our sales advisory strategy, as well as this lead generation strategy. So I will table that for hopefully a conversation that we're able to have more one-on-one.
As long as we can have snacks, I'm game.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Another question. All right. So in the Covenant Woods example, how quickly did they start seeing improved lead volume from the new content strategy?
Yeah, so for the lead generation, we were seeing an uptick in visibility within days, as we talked about. That lead volume really started to become apparent even over the weekends within 60 days of the campaign going live. So remember that we launched in the middle of December, which is typically not the best lead volume, for lead generation, but we hit that wave in January and started to see lead volume come through January into February.
Yeah. Nice. I know that was a nice surprise for everyone. Results that we couldn't have expected would happen so quickly. We're used to that taking a little bit longer and for content to get out there and have to crawl across the web. So that's pretty exciting to see something that you can see results practically, I'm not going to say overnight, but within, a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Let's see what else we have here. AI. Yes, we knew this would come up. How can AI tools help in identifying the right topics for ranking and lead generation?
Yeah. So we have used Google Console data. So for clients that have search campaigns that are currently running, which is typically most communities, that has a lot of historical information about what keywords were generating results, and helping us to understand and define the region. So as well as understanding, through our platform, we're using multiple AI sources to really understand what those questions are for, creating the blog content and informing the subtopics, landing pages really became key to building out all of the assets together and having them link in a way that was sensible, because we knew that people were going to come into the assets in multiple different ways.
That's awesome. All right. Seeing no other questions for today, I think that, and look at the time, we're perfect. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and remind everyone, if you'd like to explore this further, there's a QR code on the screen right now that you can click on to get more information. And don't forget about our Insight series that we also put up here, where we will keep that updated so that all these changes and swamps that come along in your daily life, you're ready to address. Thanks so much for attending today. Dana, thank you. You drew a large crowd. That speaks volumes. Appreciate everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.